My name is Korkor, and I'm the founder and the CEO of the A.B. Korkor Foundation for Mental Health. We're back together. We're back together with the series of the webinars that we have related to Share Your Story. Uh, Share Your Story is a seminar series that we have started with individuals who have mental health issues and have been willingly to share their story with them. The purpose of our webinar is to really to encourage all of you who have mental health issues to be open about it and discuss it and share your story, because you will strengthen yourself and strengthen others and help make the world a better place for all of us as well. So I want to thank you all for joining us today on this webinar. And I'm really welcome having a friend and a talented individual, uh, you know, Billy. Billy Dorsey is a gentleman who I've met for the first time about virtually about 3 or 4 years ago, after I wrote a song during the 550 called You're Not Alone. Well, Billy wrote the music, and a wonderful singer that he introduced, to Shiloh Swift, actually sang it, and it was just a wonderful song. He also wrote the music for another poem that I wrote, Mickey, and now he's also producing a third song for me related to the COVID-19. Billy, it's been a pleasure having you here today, and I look forward to hearing your story and helpfully empower all of those who are sharing, who are listening to you today. So thank you.
Thank you, my friend. It's an honor to be with you today. So I'm excited for the opportunity to share with you all. My story, my mental health journey began about 20 years ago. I moved to Houston when I signed a recording contract to sing, and I went through a situation where the label decided that they wanted to replace one of the members of the group. I fought against it out of loyalty, and the label froze our contract out. And as a result, I ended up homeless on the streets of Fifth Ward, which is an inner city community here in Houston, Texas, that at that time was known for not only extreme poverty, but for drug addiction and for gang violence. And I found myself sleeping on the streets in that community as a result of me losing my recording contract. And that spiraled me into suicidal ideation and into a deep depression that I'm going to share with you my journey here in a little bit and my purpose. But during the course of that process, I found obviously the need for mental health care and for people to be advocates. And I got the firsthand experience not only of my own journey to the darkest parts of my psyche dealing with mental health challenges, but also I got to see several people that were homeless alongside me on the streets there in Fifth Ward that were not there because of drug or alcohol addiction, but many of them were there because of either undiagnosed or untreated mental health challenges. So I'd like to, if I can, to share my journey with you. I've been blessed in the years since I went through that bout with depression and suicidal ideation to have won a Grammy and to produce records that have been #1 albums on multiple Billboard charts, to sell millions of records, and to partner with some of the world's largest charitable organizations to raise millions of dollars using our creative efforts for causes that I believe in, such as mental health awareness and removing the stigma, and also battling homelessness, which are two things that, as I've shared and will share further, that have deeply impacted my life. In the process of those things, I have found what it means to live a life of purpose. And as I share this with you, I want to encourage all of you who see this to know that it doesn't matter what you accomplish if those accomplishments only point towards yourself. Adel asked me a second ago what titles I wanted to be mentioned by, and I mentioned to him that titles really don't matter. And the reason why I say that and why I reiterate it to you now is because far too often people that have become successful, that have overcome something, if we're not careful, we will allow that success to become something that props us up or that elevates us. But real success is not determined by what you can do just for yourself or your family, but by the impact that you have on the lives of other people. In some cases, even people who may not know who you are or might not ever meet you in person. So in the process of me discovering what purpose truly is, what legacy truly is, and learning how to make the most of my journey through mental health challenges and through homelessness to becoming successful and now having tremendous influence in the spheres in which I travel, I have been blessed to have found out what it means to live a life of purpose. And I call that in the right seat. And I'd love to give you a presentation to share that with you now, if I may. Being in the right seat means that you're living a life of purpose. It means that you are operating within the nexus of three factors. And those factors in your life are your proficiency, which are your skills, your gifts, your talents, the things that you have developed over the course of years that makes you great. Also, your passion, what drives you, what motivates you, what pushes you. When all other exterior motivational factors have faded away, your passion is that fire that burns within you that compels you to greatness. And the third factor of being in the right seat is having the right positioning. It means relationships and access and opportunities that are available to you, and you being the right person to maximize those opportunities. When you are operating from the nexus of your proficiency, your passion, and your positioning, we call it being in the right seat.
Now, KTVS
from my journey to my hometown, I want to share.
A local man is now working for one of the largest churches in America and selling a lot of music too.
His name is Billy Dorsey. His hometown is Houghton, Louisiana, and he is the subject of tonight's A Promise of Hope.
When Billy Dorsey sings those words, nothing shall be impossible, he does it with conviction. Billy knows miracles really do happen. Let me take you back just a few years. Billy Dorsey grew up in Houghton, Louisiana with a passion for Jesus and a love for music. He forms a band, has some early success, then life spirals down. He ends up living in a rundown music studio in Houston, sometimes locked in for days by a drug-addicted producer.
And when he was out doing whatever he was doing, there was no way for me to reach him. So I was literally trapped inside this building with burglar bars. At night, when I would try to go to sleep, there were rats in the studio that would eat the food. And it was a horrible situation. As clearly as you hear my voice, I said, God, why am I going through this? And as clearly as you hear my voice, God said to me, I want you to pay attention to every detail of what you're going through, because one day I'm going to bless you to be successful. I'm going to take these trials and I'm going to make them your testimony.
A few months later, a California producer sees Billy's music on YouTube.
He sent an email that said a few words. It said, love your music, let's build. And within 3 months, we were in Beverly Hills working on songs for all kind of famous people.
And the Grammy goes to?
Time passes, the blessings continue. An album Billy helps write and produce wins a Dove, a Stella, and a Grammy. And the hits just keep coming.
I've now got 4 #1 albums. I believe I had 2 when we did our first interview. About to be 5 with Give You Jesus. Got a partnership now with ChristianMingle.com, which is the largest dating website in the world. I am basically a spokesperson for them. They partner with me for the launch of the new song.
The next time you tell somebody, I give you my heart, I give you my love, I want you to...
And Billy has a new partner, the most famous preacher in America. Joel Osteen has Billy leading outreach worship for Lakewood Church. And in May, he debuted his hit single, Give Me Jesus, in front of thousands of Lakewood faithful. Pastor Joel says Billy is the symbol of what he preaches every Sunday morning.
Listen, this is a new day. Can't do anything about the past, but we can do something.
I believe in Billy because of what he came through, what he stands for, his heart to help other people, and his desire to not get stuck where he was, but he continues to rise higher and bless others, and that's what our ministry is about, and that's what Billy's about.
So when Billy Dorsey sings "Nothing is Impossible," he really believes it. Billy knows from whom all his blessings flow.
He remembered me when I was lost. He remembered me when I was homeless. He remembered me when I didn't have anything and I cried out to him. He answered me and he's kept every promise. I want everybody that knows my name to know his name. I want them to see him when they see me, and I want them to understand that he's faithful and that if he's done these things for me, he'll do it for them too.
Watching that, I want to share, rather than going down the religious road, because that's not what today is about, I want to share with you the journey to purpose and how my mental health challenges intersected neatly with those. As you just saw in the interview, my journey is that I went from being homeless on the Fifth Ward to becoming an award-winning music producer, songwriter, and raising millions and millions of dollars for charitable organizations as a philanthropist. My story previous to the record deal that you just saw was that I grew up in a military family. My father was in the Air Force. He served 20 years. And as a result, I got to live all over the world and had the blessing of interacting with different cultures and learning different languages as a child. And so I was exposed to the fact that there was more to the world than the four corners of the neighborhood that I grew up in, as far too many people do. And as you've seen there through that interview, I also grew up with a very strong religious upbringing. And at 18 years old, I had the opportunity to earn a full scholarship to Louisiana Tech University. It was a vocal music performance scholarship to sing, which was my first dream. And as a result, I signed a record deal at 19 years old, my first major recording contract. The record label was Polygram, which now no longer exists. It was one of the major labels at the time. And so that label, the subsidy of that label that we signed directly to was based in Houston. And so I had the opportunity to move from Shreveport, Louisiana, where my parents lived, to Houston, Texas, where I now reside, to begin working on my recording contract, or to begin working on that first album. As you guys saw in the interview, and as I've mentioned before, when the label decided that they wanted to replace one of the members of the group, and I fought against it, I became homeless on the streets of Fifth Ward. And that is where, for the first time in my life, I was faced with a depression that was so deep that I couldn't shake it. I was faced with the thought that maybe my life was not worth it enough for me to continue to press forward, that maybe the lives of the people who loved me would be better served if I was no longer here. I don't remember prior to that moment ever having a suicidal thought. I don't remember ever thinking that maybe life would be better for my parents or my siblings or my friends without me in it. But when I found myself in a circumstance that was so horrible and so untenable that I could not bear to go on in that moment, those thoughts came to my mind. And I want to encourage everybody who sees this or who tunes into this, who is in a place right now as a result of what we faced with COVID, where maybe you've lost a job. Maybe you have lost your wages if you have a job, but your hours have been cut. Maybe your parents have suffered. Maybe you're unfortunately related to one of the more than 200,000 Americans who have passed away during this time as a result of COVID-19. And maybe because of the isolation of quarantine, on top of all the other mitigating factors, you have found yourself in a place of depression, in a place where your mental health is being challenged and the stability of that health has been compromised. I want to encourage you as I share my story that you too can find your way through this moment in which you find yourself to the right seat. My story didn't end when I was homeless on the streets of Fifth Ward. As you see here, it says that I went on to produce Grammy, Dove, and Stellar Award-winning Billboard chart-topping albums. That is not because I was more special or more talented or gifted than the other musicians that are in the industry. It is merely because I refused to accept defeat. I refused to allow depression to beat me and to overcome the destiny for which I believe that I was created. I pressed through those moments and found my way back to being whole again. And as a result, I've been blessed to have the success that I always dreamed of. I've been successful in international ministry, to have done concerts for tens of thousands of people all over the world, everywhere from the Taj Mahal in India to Italy, to the Philippines, to the jungles of Africa and the shores of the Nile River. I've had the opportunity to minister and to sing and to create music that has impacted the lives of people that don't even speak English as a primary language. And in the resulting years, after that has begun for me, not only have I been blessed to become successful in ministry and in philanthropy and as a music producer, but I've also now formed a full-fledged record label called the Bridge Life Entertainment Group in partnership with E1 Nashville, which is the world's largest independent record company. And as a result of that, as a result of all of the things that matter to me and my life's journey, I've been blessed to partner with organizations like United Bible Societies, which is the world's largest Bible translator, distributor, and publisher, with NAMI, with the Salvation Army, to raise millions of dollars for the causes that are central to those organizations, but that are near and dear to my heart. None of those things matters without me acknowledging my beautiful bride. This is my wife, Monica, and I call her Queen. So if you follow me on social media, if you see me referring to Queen, you'll see who I'm talking about. We were blessed to be married on the shores of Santorini, Greece. And this is us at our wedding day cutting our cake. And it was actually pretty good, by the way. And not only is my wife the most important person in my life, but so are our 3 daughters. That is my oldest daughter, Asia, who is now a sophomore at Texas A&M, our 13-year-old daughter, Taylor, and our 8-year-old daughter, Chloe Marie, who is my mini-me in every sense of the word. Those 4 ladies are my heart. As we talk about being in the right seat, for me, the most important thing is just identifying your core proficiencies. What are your gifts? What are your talents? What are your skills? Even if you are battling with mental health challenges and you're trying to find your purpose, as I once was when I was homeless on the streets of Fifth Ward, I had to identify, before I could ever move forward into pursuing my purpose, what were the skills that I had developed over my life. And I would ask each of you that sees this, what gifts and talents were you born with? What seeds were planted in your childhood? For me, music comes very naturally to me. It's something that has been with me my entire life. My father is a good singer. I grew up in the church where music is a part of your vocabulary every Sunday and throughout the week. And so music became an intrinsic part of who I am. But not only music, I also had the opportunity, being the oldest son of 2 pastors, to have to speak very often in church growing up. And so I developed the skills as a public speaker, which is something that has brought me to a certain amount of acclaim in the world over the last couple of years, just traveling the world and sharing my story of going from homeless to being someone that helps people to find their purpose. Those seeds were planted in my childhood. I would ask each of you that sees this, what professions are you most drawn to and why? What's your dream job? If you could do anything in the world and money was no object, what would that job be? And then when you look at it from that perspective, you've got to ask yourself, if you were to get that dream job or have the opportunity to do whatever it is that you want to do, what are the skills that perhaps you don't have yet, that you have not developed? What steps can you take to gain the necessary skills to be qualified for the proficiency, for the job that you want to have? What skills have you developed along your journey that are the most authentic to who you are? As I shared, music, public speaking, marketing, promotions, being creative all the way around, those are the skills that my life has prepared me for. But the struggles that I faced when I went through depression, when I battled with suicidal ideation, when I was sleeping on the streets of Fifth Ward and having to eat out of trash cans, that developed a grit in me that I didn't have before. And it also enabled me to be able to relate to the person out there in the world that is the most overlooked or that is in the most untenable, undesirable circumstance, and allows me to connect with them and to have a heart for them. That's a gift that was given to me as a direct result of my challenges with mental health and of the time that I spent homeless, where the two intersect so closely. I would ask you, what talents and skills were you developing at some point in your life, but allowed someone to talk you out of pursuing? And I would encourage you with this: if they haven't done it, they can't tell you that you can't do it. There have been people along my journey early on that told me that the things that I'm now doing every day, making music for a living and earning more than most of my friends with college degrees in business or in engineering or other fields, having something that allowed me to have the impact and influence around the world that I'd always desired to have, to impact the lives of other people. There were folks early in my journey that told me that that was not possible, but it just wasn't possible for them. I want to encourage you that just because someone else tells you you can't do it doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that they couldn't. The second step in finding your purpose is harnessing your passion. Your passion for me is the GPS. It's the guide. It is the fire inside of you that leads you to the place where you will find your purpose. For me, my gifts musically and speaking, those are just talents. Those are my proficiencies. And yes, I love them. But my passion, as a direct result of me overcoming mental health challenges and the time that I spent homeless, the passion is to impact the lives of other people that are overlooked by the general populace. My passion is to shine a light in the dark places where so many people who battle stigma unfortunately find themselves, because people would rather just ostracize you than deal with the challenges that you're facing. My heart's desire has been, and my passion has been, to be an advocate, to use every bit of influence that my success has brought me to shine a light, to be the person that's on a mountaintop shouting for all to hear that these people need help, and not just talking about help for them, but being a catalyst for help and a catalyst for change for everyone, from mental health challenges to those that are homeless, to the people that are dealing with any type of financial challenges in their lives, to the people that are going through any circumstance in which they find themselves where they think that they're alone. I have a passion to convince those people that they will never be alone, and to connect them with resources that they might not have ever known were there for them. That's my passion. I would ask each of you, what is your passion? You can never live a life of purpose without it. You've got to find that thing that drives you. What are you most passionate about? Proficiency without passion is hollow, and it lacks the deeper motivation that leads us to greatness. Everybody's definition of greatness is different. Mine might have been to have #1 albums and to produce Grammy-winning albums and to be on stages in front of tens of thousands of people. That might be how some people define greatness in my life. But greatness for me really is the lives that I impact that may never know my name. The people whose lives are better because I was blessed to be in a position of influence. That's greatness to me. What is greatness to you? And if you're not sure yet about your passion, I would ask you the question that was asked to me many years ago that changed my whole perspective on passion. What breaks your heart? You see, because I battled with mental health challenges, because I know what it's like to want to pick up a pistol and end my life, because I know what it's like to wish that I could go to sleep and not wake up the next day, because I have endured the challenges of sleeping on the streets and eating out of garbage cans and having to overcome that to become successful. What breaks my heart is seeing people in that same situation that do not know that there is more life ahead of them than behind them, and that they have not failed because they're in that situation. That's my passion, because it breaks my heart to see people in the place where I once was. It drives everything that I do. It's what led me to ADL and to the A.B. Korkor Foundation. It's what allowed me to have the opportunity to speak with each of you today, because of his heart for mental health and for the people that are battling with mental health challenges. Because that breaks my heart, my passion for it connected me to him, who also has a passion for it. What is your passion? What breaks your heart? And how can you combine your skills, your gifts, your talents, your core proficiency with those things that you're passionate about? If you're looking for places to serve in your passion, What other businesses, charities, or causes also focus their efforts in the areas of your passion? What are the differentiators in your approach that will help you to carve out your own niche in the marketplace? For me, it's combining my musical talent with my heart for people that battle mental health challenges. Dr. Korkor mentioned at the beginning of this call as he was introducing me that I've been blessed to produce music for multiple poems that he's written about people that have battled with mental health challenges. That is a passion of mine because mental health challenges and people battling that stigma breaks my heart, and it's something that I'm driven to contribute to. But I do it creatively using my talents, using my proficiencies, which are songwriting and marketing and production, the musical side of what we do. What is your passion? The third facet of living a life of purpose is to maximize your positioning. Positioning, as you see here, is the sum of the relationships, access, and opportunities that are currently at your disposal. Positioning is what leads you to the platform from which you will launch your business, your charity, or other organization. For me, my positioning is not only that I've overcome mental health challenges, but it's also the relationships that I've been blessed to develop along the way. Lakewood Church is one of those positions that you saw in the news article that ABC did about my story that I shared a bit ago. Lakewood Church, they heard about my journey of going from homeless on the streets of Fifth Ward, where they do outreach ministry, feeding the homeless and giving turkeys out at Thanksgiving and gifts to the lower income children at Christmas time. They heard that I'd gone from being homeless on those same streets to not only becoming successful in music, but when they met me, I was already serving in outreach and other capacities there. Lakewood was a position for me. Lakewood allowed me the platform to connect with United Bible Societies, because an interview that was done with Pastor Joel and I talking about my story was seen all the way in the UK by the head of marketing for United Bible Societies. The positioning Lakewood offered me the opportunity to develop new positions, new relationships. I would ask each of you, what relationships do you currently possess that lend themselves to your purpose? And how can you add value to those relationships? What opportunities were you operating in your proficiencies and with passion open to you? How can you best position yourself to take advantage of those opportunities? And what access do you have with your current positioning that you may have overlooked? As it relates to finding your positioning, to finding a life of purpose, you've got to look at the relationships and the access that you have and identify not only how those things can help you to reach your purpose, but also, more importantly in some cases, how you can help them to achieve their goals. And a purpose crutch, and I will end with this as we're mindful of the time with you guys. All of us have crutches. We all have people or things around us that keep us from wholeheartedly pursuing our life's purpose. Some examples of those things are passed down belief systems, a lot of times from our parents, our teachers, our mentors, that limit our ability to envision or believe in our ability to achieve our goals. Common examples of that are our thoughts on money, on finances, our views on success, lack of self-confidence, which many people who battle with mental health challenges face. Words of doubt that are expressed by those with positions of influence in our lives. Sometimes we are our own purpose crutch by not working hard enough, not having a solid work ethic or discipline, and a lack of knowledge. What crutch has hindered each of you in your lives, and how do you overcome these crutches? As I close, about a life of purpose. For you to live a life of purpose, especially after you have gone through, as I have, the challenges of mental health, the challenges of perhaps being suicidal, or whatever your diagnosis or your challenge might be, the key is for you to identify the things that are already in you that point you towards the purpose, towards the nexus, the intersection of your passion, your proficiencies, and your positioning. When you do that, you are in the right seat.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Billy. That was amazing. That was amazing, exceptional. Um, one comment I have, and I'd like to share with you, is that I think a lot of time when you're in that dark place, when you really don't see anything, and you feel that you're not worthy much to others or to yourself, where do you think that self-compassion plays a role in there? I think that we are sort of have been ingrained to not really, to have compassion for others, but not compassion to ourselves. And sometimes I feel like not having our ability to exert compassion toward our own self can get in the way of us finding the things that can help us get out of the situation that we may be in. Do you agree with that? And do you see that playing any role?
Yes, I absolutely agree with it. It is, most of us are far harder on ourselves than we are on other people. We might not like to admit that, but we hold ourselves to a different set of standards. And when we fail, sometimes we are the ones that keep ourselves in a place of suffering, of feeling like we're less than because of the mistakes we make. What I would say to anyone that is dealing with a lack of self-confidence, you just have to understand how many factors had to take place for you to be here. Think in terms of your family tree. Think of the odds of all of those different lines of people that had to lead down to your mother and your father for you to be here. You are not a coincidence, nor are you, regardless of what anyone might have told you, an accident. You are special. You are purposed. You are in this time in which you find ourselves, in which we all find ourselves, for a reason. And rather than you refusing to allow yourself to believe in yourself, you owe it to not only yourself, but to all of those people that came together to create you, to find what it is that you were put on this earth at this moment for. When you do that, not only do you honor your forebears, we always talk about wanting to make our parents proud or our grandparents proud or whoever came before us proud, but you also create a legacy for those who will follow you. And that only happens when you believe in yourself. I would just say, it doesn't matter how much, Adel, someone else believes in us if we don't believe in ourselves.
That is so true. Yes, what's so true. One of the challenges that I can tell you from someone who suffered from mental health issues as well, one of the challenges that I had is that the fact that sharing it with others was always a challenge, and was always I was always reluctant to share my anxiety with other people, because there's always that sense, oh, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just wrap it up? Why can't you just figure it out? And as a result, I found other means to deal with it, go out for a run or do other things. Did you experience that with the people around you when you're having those mental health challenges, that you really didn't have, the ability to share it with them openly and share those feelings?
Yes, I did. I had the same issue. And then you have to add to that also the stigma that exists in the religious community about mental health. Not only do they not understand it, but they think that it's a spiritual condition when it's a physiological condition. So because of my upbringing, there is already stigma in the Black community and in the religious community related to anything to do with mental health challenges. I was blessed in that some of the people that I saw on the streets when I was homeless were like military veterans that had seen things that they couldn't shake, and it had them, they were battling with some type of PTSD on top of their other diagnoses. I had other people that were in the same situation with me that I was able to talk to that could relate, but everyone doesn't have that, to your point.
Yeah. You brought up, Billy, you brought up something really important, and I really wanted to touch on touch on it. Being a Black American and having, me having gone all over the country during the 550-50 and having met a lot of Black people around the 550-50, and the discussion I had with them, there was always this consistent feeling that they had such challenging stigma in the Black community,
True.
and especially men. That men, just like, they have to tough it up. They can't just say, well, you know what, I'm panic, or I'm anxious, or I'm depressed, or I can't do it. There was such a stigma in the Black community, which creates enormous amount of barrier, that even if mental health care is available, people are not reaching out to it because they don't feel they're too strong. They should be able to handle it. They're Black men. What do you thought about that?
It's cultural. It's everything that you just said is 100% truthful. It's a cultural thing. If I'm honest, without going on a diatribe, it dates all the way back to slavery. Think back to how the family was divided as a part of slavery in this country. The father was, by a variety of means, intentionally belittled in front of his wife and his kids. His wife and his kids were physically taken away from him in slavery. They were sold to other plantations. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, but answer to your question dates back to that. And so what's happened after slavery is, because the place of the man, the father, the husband in the Black community was stripped away, now men have this idea that because our forebears could not be there for their wives and their children, we've got to be Superman for ours. And what that does is it sets up false expectations and unreachable standards for us to adhere to and to aspire to. I'm going to cry sometimes. No matter how much I love my wife and my kids, sometimes I'm going to make mistakes or fall short of what they want to see me become or want to see me do. It's part of being human, but because of the stigma, because of the history there, it makes it hard for Black men to be vulnerable. So then you add to that, we're talking about mental health, which has the religious and the cultural stigma on top of everything else. And I'm a Black man, I got to be strong, Adel. I can't show any weakness. You add that to it, now you've got a recipe where you have men that are doing things that they shouldn't do as an escape from things that they should be able to confess and talk about. The Bible says, confess your faults one to another so that you may be healed. That's the religious thought behind going to therapy and talking to someone. When you can talk about what you're dealing with, there is healing there. But because of the stigma in the Black community, especially for Black men, that is an incredibly difficult thing for us to allow ourselves to do. We're looked at as weak if we acknowledge that we have those problems. And the last thing a Black man wants to be after all of our history is viewed as weak.
Yeah. I remember a story of a gentleman that I met in Houston when we were doing the 550-50, and he came to me and he actually shared his story, was that he was the son of a pastor. And he, every time he would go to his dad and say, you know what, I'm having those emotional issues, he'll say, go and pray. And the idea was that is where he's going to get the help that he needs. And it was not until he decided that, you know what, this is not working. I need to get away and I need to find help. And the minute he found help, he did get the help that he needs, fortunately, and he was able to overcome. But there's that stigma again that you talked about within the religious community that, prayers is the answer.
That's it. And that has not changed. That's been that way. What my hope is that seeing more people, including people of color like Kanye West and others, being open about bipolar disorder and their diagnoses and things like that. My hope is that in the Black community and in the Black religious community, that we would start to get an understanding more of what it really means to have mental health challenges. It's not something to pray away. It's not going to go away by prayer. It's something that needs to be treated. It's something that in some cases needs to have medication assigned to it. In some cases, it's therapy. But just praying it away, it's not a spirit, it's not a demon. But that's the prevalent thought in the Black church. Anytime you say something, we wouldn't pray cancer away that way. Or that, well, let me say this. People will pray for cancer, but they're not going to judge you if you go to get chemotherapy. You understand? Mm-hmm. We might pray for you that God would heal you from cancer, but when you go to have surgery or go to get chemotherapy so that the medical doctors can treat you, we're not going to judge you. We're going to encourage you. We're going to lock arms with you. We're going to be there for you in the Black community, in the religious community. But if you say you've got a mental health challenge, oh, now we've got to pray. And if you go to a doctor, there's something wrong with your faith. That's a whole nother line of discussion that we'd have another time, but it's a very real thing, and I hope to see it change.
Yeah, me too. In your discussion about finding passion, I love the equation that you had between passion, having a passion, or what you described as harvesting a passion, and the GPS system that's really guiding you. And I mean, clearly you found music. You already were in music, and then you're back to music, and you found your strength through music and singing. Well, how much did really music was the passion that you harnessed that allowed you to succeed, and how much was it really a form of treatment for your mental health challenges?
That's a great question. I would say that it's an equal amount, that it's 50-50. Music is the only thing that kept me sane when I was homeless. Part of that time, as you saw in the interview, I was locked inside of a recording studio. I want to make sure that people catch this. When I wasn't outside on the streets and sleeping under bridges here in Houston, I was locked inside of a recording studio. So even though I didn't have food, and even though I didn't have clean running water, I always had music. And it kept me sane. It gave me an outlet for the pain that I was feeling, and for the depression, and for the sadness, and it gave me a way to express the things that I had no one to tell. So what I couldn't say to a person, to your earlier question, I could say it through the piano. I could say it by singing feelings. I could say it by playing the right song while I was in that environment that gave voice to the things that were hidden in my heart. Music was not only my passion, it was absolutely my escape. Great.
Right. Yeah. That's wonderful to hear. And I kind of guessed that, but I felt that I'd like to hear it from you. I have to touch on the issue of parenting and how someone who's gone through all these challenges and now you're successful, and how is that influencing now you're offering your kids a lot more than what you were offered. You are not privileged to a lot of the things that they're privileged to today. How are you keeping them and keeping their ability and their expectations as they move forward in life with the modest, with the understanding is that there's still people out there who don't have what they have.
Gotcha.
How much are you focusing on that?
I bring my daughters along when I do outreach ministry.
Okay.
So they come out and feed the homeless with me. They come out and see us take blankets to people that are on the streets, and I have them right there so that they can see. Because to be quite honest, I would have been the person before I was homeless that would have judged the person on the corner with the sign. Go get a job. Why are you out here, panhandling or begging for money? You look able-bodied. If you're able to work, to stand on this corner for hours, you could go to a job. Like, I was that guy. And my situation and what I went through gave me compassion for people. And so the way that I instill that in my kids, when I go out to serve those people that I talked about, that's my passion, is to help other people, my girls are right with me. My wife is right with me preparing plates. And so she grew up in a household that's ministry based too, so she gets it. But for the girls, they're right there with us, serving, being involved, and connecting with people. So they not only get to see me serving, but I want them to be hands-on, handing out plates and giving people hugs and saying, praying for people and encouraging them. If you grow up with the perspective that, yes, we're blessed, and yes, my dad does really well, but I see firsthand that there are other people that are not doing so well, and I want to help them. If you grow up with that mentality, you will always have a servant's heart. And that's what I want to instill. And I'd like to, if we can, I want to address, there were a couple questions here that I see in the chat. Somebody asked, how do we ensure that those things we're passionate about, those things that break our hearts, how do we ensure that those things don't break us? The way that you ensure that those things that we're passionate about don't break us is by pouring those things out in a way that impacts the lives of other people for the better. If we allow passion, think about it. I compared passion not only to a GPS, but also to fire. If fire is contained in something that's not fireproof, it's going to burn it up. But if you put a fire on a lantern, if you put a fire outside where people are out in the cold and allow them to stand around it, that fire gives warmth to all who come, warmth and light to all who come into contact with it. The way that you ensure that what you're passionate about does not burn you up or does not break you, things that break your heart do not break you, you channel that into something that is light and warmth for other people. For me, the pain that I still feel sometimes when I think about being homeless, I didn't share it already, but when I was homeless, I couldn't brush my teeth. So I have teeth that are rotted. I don't know if you guys can see that. I've got teeth that rotted out of my mouth 20 years ago when I was homeless. And I could certainly afford to get them replaced now. But the reason why I don't is as a reminder that what I went through caused me pain, and I want to never see other people go through that. So the thing that broke my heart and still breaks my heart, I channel that into being light and warmth for other people so that they don't have to go through what I went through. That's how you ensure that what you're passionate about doesn't break you. And the other question I see here is how did you get the help you needed when things were so dark for you? How did you see clearly enough to find your way to help? For me, the answer was my faith. For me, it was having good friends around me who were there before I was homeless that saw me going through that situation and said, you don't have to keep going through that. You can come sleep on our sofa. You know, we'll help you to get back on your feet. And people that loved me before that situation that were still there by my side through it. So it was my faith in God and also having good friends who would not let me die in that place. What do you have around you that allows you to find your way through the darkness? It may not be family. It may not be friends. It may not be your faith, although without making this a religious discussion, I think it should be. I think you have to find something to look forward to. It's easy to look back at all the things that have gone wrong, but what's the one thing that you can look forward to with hope and with expectation? If you fix your thoughts on that one thing, it gives you something to push forward through the darkness towards. Great questions, guys.
Right. And
Adam.
it looks like there are more questions out there again, related to how did you get the help you need when things were so dark for you?
Right, and that's what I was just saying. For me, it was my faith. It was my faith. It was believing that, again, without making this a religious thing,
right.
I want to be mindful of the
right.
For me, believing that I was here for a reason, and that if my faith led me to that point, it would not leave me there. That there had to be more to my life than where I was in that moment. That's what got me through. That and my friends.
Right. And another question is about how do we break that stigma of talking about experiencing how we feel when we're experiencing, and how can we learn the language of expressing emotional wellness, emotional health without stigma?
Groups like yours, organizations like the A.B. Korkor Foundation. Social media now is much farther along than it was when I was homeless many years ago. There are groups online that you can join where there are people who are battling the same thing that you're battling, where they are there for you to be able to share your stories and to talk about the challenges, and you encourage each other. Breaking the stigma is finding community. People that understand what you've been through, people that have a heart for, that are compassionate towards what it is that you are facing, especially other people that have gone through the same thing. I could be somebody's a safe place for them to share these things because I've been through them, so I have compassion for them. What are the groups that you have access to, the organizations that you have access to that are looking for and welcoming you into a space where you can be open about how you feel, where you can talk about what you're experiencing, and where they can teach you healthy ways to not only communicate it, but to deal with what you're going through. So your organization is a brilliant place for that. Non is another good one that's what they do. There are resources that are there for families and individuals who are battling not only mental health challenges, but to the question, the stigma of not being able to tell anyone. Find community. That's the answer.
Yeah. you very much. I mean, I very much agree with everything that you said. And the fact of the matter is that, when I made the decision to establish the foundation, and I was looking at, which cause I want to really focus on, mental health was always top priority, because not only that I had my own personal challenges with it and experience with it, but also I saw what everybody else had, and how my patients were being challenged, of not wanting or able to share their stories, and also not getting the help that they need, not having the access to care that they need, and ultimately I think, through efforts like my effort and NAMI and Mental Health America and your effort by stepping up and talking about this is really how we can break that stigma and bring people to the help that they need. Do you, as a Black American, see that the access to mental health care in your community is good? Or how do you assess the access situation there?
I would say, because I'm a part of NAMI and I know the outreach there, that yes, the access is good. But it's not about the access that I think is the challenge. I think it's that people don't know that they have the access. People in the Black community may not know about the resources that are available to them. Those resources are readily available. I can honestly say that, but it doesn't matter how much is there if I don't know it's there.
I got it.
It's not that the resources are not available. It's that there's not enough knowledge and insight about it. And to the question of how do we get that word out, it's just marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It's promotions. It's
yeah.
where they are. If people are listening to the radio, how many commercials are we doing on the radio where we're letting people know we're not selling a car, we're not trying to get you to go to a concert, we're trying to talk to you about a place where you can come to get help, especially right now while so many people are battling with the mental health challenges as a direct result of the circumstances in which we all find ourselves. What's the outreach? How are we marketing to people in a way that they can receive it, that they are already susceptible to being proliferated with those messages? If we're not reaching people where they are, we're missing the mark. And I think that's what I see with so many mental health organizations. We go through our hospitals and our other counterparts. But if the people don't know about those resources, they're not there, the ones who need us. So how do we go to where they are and make them aware of the resources that they can avail themselves of? That's the key, marketing.
Yeah. Topic of youth and youth Black, as you know that and here we really don't, you know that there is a high percentage of youth Black in the jail in our country, and many of them do suffer from either mental health issues or abuse situation or drug use or drug abuse. So it's really very sad to see the fact that so much of the youth Black is really being curtailed by all those challenges. What do you see? I can't really tell you what kind of solution do you have, but give me some perspective of what you think is going on there and how we can stop this brain drain of the youth Black in our country from ending up in our computer. Obviously, this is a very difficult topic and it's got a lot of ramifications, and I don't intend to get into all the politics associated with it. But I'm just wondering how we're approaching this in terms of how to address the youth issues in the Black communities.
Got it. The simplest answer is restoring the nuclear family in the Black community. The 13th Amendment makes slavery legal in the United States if someone is convicted of a crime. And what that has done is, in the Black community, it's created what's called the school to prison pipeline. It's something I've done a lot of study on. And these are conversations that have become much more prevalent during this time of quarantine after the death of George Floyd and some of the other major instances that we've seen. But they've existed for decades. What that is that minority children that get in trouble in school start receiving stricter and harsher punishments from elementary school, and they're quicker to be tried as an adult, as a juvenile, than other races. So you see young men that grow up in a household, and when I say young men, I mean teenagers, young Black boys, that grow up in a household where their father was not gainfully employed, made poor decisions, and is now incarcerated for an extended period of time. So he's not there to provide self-confidence and to instill self-confidence in his children. He's not there to set an example for his son of what it is to get up every day and go to work. He's not there to be a support system and a leader to his household, as you and I talked about before this meeting, about how with our wives and our daughters and how as husbands and fathers we have a responsibility to lead. So you get young men, 15, 16, 17 years old, that grow up in an environment where they see their mother working 2 and 3 jobs, struggling to provide for the family because father's incarcerated or not there, where those young men are trying to help their mother to not struggle, and they're trying to fill the role of a father that's not there. And so instead of them being able to go get a job, as it's hard for them to do, especially if they've got any kind of a juvenile record due to the school to prison pipeline and the harsher punishments that are doled out to them, they fall into illegal activity, selling drugs, robberies, you name it, that's what they're falling into. And so you see those young men that are dealing with PTSD at the very least from their upbringing. I believe that generational trauma is something that is also synonymous with racial trauma. I believe that the things, and this is not just true for Black people. I've had the opportunity to talk with people whose grandparents or great-grandparents were affected by the Holocaust and things like that. There's an imprint that follows us from what our forebears faced. Whole nother discussion, and I'd love to have time to talk about it, but I know we really don't. That if we don't get to the root of that and start to fix the issues that are passed down, the trauma that's passed down, the struggles that are passed down, and if we don't restore the nuclear family, if we don't bring fathers back into the homes and put mothers and fathers, husbands and wives back together, and allow fathers the opportunity to find gainful employment and to lead their families, if we don't allow people to reduce the recidivism rates of people going back to jail when they get out, you're going to continue to see young Black kids in jail at disproportionate numbers because they don't have the stability that sets them up to be successful the same way others do. I'm only here, beyond my faith, beyond my music, because of the example that my father set. Remember, I mentioned 20 years in the Air Force. I got to see him get up every day and go to work and come home with his military uniform on, tired but still love my mom, tired but still spend time with us. That example is what kept me from selling drugs when I was homeless. Let's be transparent. That's what helped me to not go down the wrong roads that might have provided a quick solve to a long-term problem in my own life. Because trust me, the opportunity was there for me, but the example that my father had set helped me to not make the wrong decision. Imagine if my dad wasn't there. I might not be here talking. I probably certainly wouldn't be here talking to you now. I definitely would not have the success that I have or be in the position that I'm in. It's because I stand on his shoulders. We've got to restore that.
Very true. I really appreciate it. This has been amazing. It can go on for a long time. There's so many things that we could talk about, but I can tell you that this has been incredibly inspirational. You're an amazing, you talked about, delivery. You were just incredible. I need to learn a lot of your skills, trust me. So thank you so much for this, Billy, and I really appreciate you joining us on Share Your Story with the A.B. Korkor Foundation webinar series. This has been incredible, and I again want to thank you. And for all of you who are watching, thank you so much for joining us on this journey once again. And as you will have access to the webinars on our website, and through our social media. Please provide us any feedback that you might have on these seminars, and I look forward to seeing you again in a future event. So thank you so much, and wish you well.